Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're here today with our Total Wellness Tuesday episode 1817 of the Cabral Concept, and that will be at stephencabral.com/1817 if you want to follow along with the show notes and all the links for today's show. What I want to talk about is a topic that we do not review enough on the show, and that is the 7 hormonal imbalances that men may be suffering from. I know we talk a lot about estrogen and progesterone, and we talk a lot about thyroid. What I want to do is just make sure, whether you're listening to this show for some male in your life or you need this yourself, I want to make sure that we're bringing this to light. I've gotten a bunch of questions on the Cabral house calls about testosterone, about low testosterone specifically, whether people should be using HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, or TRT, which is just simply the same exact thing for men, which is testosterone replacement therapy, or if there's a more natural route. But the big thing is, don't go by just your blood work alone, because if you go to your doctors and you find you're in the lower 25%, the lower 50%, whatever it might be, they might suggest HRT too early for you as a male. And there's so much you can do, so much you need to know about before you would ever think to use it. So I'm not a proponent of men using testosterone replacement therapy, especially before the age of, let's say, 65 minimum. And that's because you can get back your own natural testosterone levels naturally. And you can do that through specific modulators, through the, let's call it the de-stress protocol, because that's what we use, which is diet and exercise and stress reduction and toxin removal and rest and emotional balance and supplement protocols, and that success mindset, which is just basically doing the things that you need to do in order to get the results that you want. So, but again, all this is very achievable. The problem with using that HRT, that TRT, is that your testosterone levels, if you start using that in your 40s and beyond, very unlikely, even 30s, very unlikely that you're going to get back your own natural testosterone production. So you have to be careful, and you have to say, okay, I'm going to use this testosterone now for the rest of my life. And being on any drug for the rest of your life is questionable at best. And that's because they can come with a host of cardiovascular issues, etc. So there's a time and place for everything. What I want to do is say, how do we optimize your body naturally so that you don't need to be using hormone replacement therapy, and specifically synthetic testosterone, which we try to say bioidentical. It's never exactly bioidentical if your body's not making it on its own, right? So we need to take in vitamins. We need to take in minerals from our environment. We don't need to take in testosterone. We don't need to take in estrogen from the environment. Our body already makes its own. So what we need to do is just say, how can we boost our own if needed? But before we do, again, this is really important, because let's say that you are a person, an individual, a body type, that for you, your normal baseline testosterone was always at 50% of the lab range. And that for you is great. But if you look at that and be like, oh, I'm only 50%, and you only ran your testosterone, instead of running it when you were 20 years old, you've only run it when you're 30 years old or 40 years old. You never knew what your base was, because for you, that might be enough to feel great. That's why I want to go over those 7 signs today first, so that, because you might be okay. Again, like you might be good. There's no need to replace what you're already good with. So some people might be fine at 30%. Honestly, they might be fine at 30%, and we're going to give you ways to boost it naturally anyway. So what I want to say is, just be careful with thinking that more is better, because your body may have never been ready for or need for you to be in that 75+% percentile for testosterone. Okay. And that's really important, because you'll say, oh, I want to be at the very top. Well, your body might not operate well at the very top. You might start to convert more testosterone to estrogen. right? You just might. You might have more rage and anger and all those different outbursts. That might not be good for you. Your body was never meant for that. However, I will say some people, a lot of the pitta body types, their testosterone, is in that 75 plus percentile of blood work. And when they even just drop to 40%, they don't feel well at all. So again, this is where individuality comes in, and it is always the key. It really is. It sounds like there is no one perfect diet for everyone. There are foundations, but there's no one perfect diet of how much fiber they should eat or how little fiber they should eat. Again, there's a baseline of fiber that you need. Some people want more, some people want less. And that's the same with vitamins and minerals, etc. So let's get into it. What are those 7 signs for that male in your life that you're looking out for, or for yourself as well? And again, this is a big one for IHPs or integrative health practitioner, health coaches. You want to be able to listen for these things during your consultations, okay? You're working with a male. Do they exhibit these qualities or these signs? Because if they do, you're going to want to run that hormones, mood, metabolism test. And again, if you don't know what that lab is, you can go to equa.life/labs, and you can just look up stress hormones, mood, and metabolism. You can run it through EquaLife, or you can run it locally through your functional medicine doctor, naturopathic doctor, IHP. I'm good with it either way, but I need to make sure that you know that you have the option to be able to do this. And it's a simple at-home, either saliva-only lab test, or you can do the saliva with the blood drop, which is just a finger poke. That's it. And then you get your vitamin D, your thyroid, and your blood sugar. And you need that because if your testosterone is low, you want to make sure you're not having blood sugar dysregularities either. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's go over the 7 signs right now. They're really straightforward. Honestly, they're straightforward. But if you're listening to this and you're thinking about your partner, yourself, and you're checking the boxes, and you're like, hey, I've got 5 of 7 of these, this very likely could be a cortisol and or testosterone issue. So let's check it out. All right. So if you exhibit this first sign, check it off. If not, let's move on to the second. So the first one is this: low or no motivation. So if you are typically low or no motivation, very little get up and go, groggy in the morning, don't really have a lot of interest in life, not a lot of ambition, don't even care about, starting that new project, you could be low in testosterone. Now, it's not the only thing. I always want to qualify this because, again, I'm an integrative health practitioner. I'm a doctor of naturopathy. I'm a bioregulatory practitioner, meaning I don't want to just think in one way. I want to understand this you could also be low in dopamine. That's true as well. Low in dopamine exhibits those same exact signs. So I don't want to say that. I have a podcast that I did on dopamine. So what I want to do is I want to link up that show here today as well. All right. So if you go to stevencabral.com/1817, we will link up the dopamine show today. I'll link up that lab test, and I'll also link up a neurotransmitter lab test, which is just a simple urine lab test that you can do right at home to look at your serotonin, which is calming, your GABA, which is calming, anti-anxiety based, and then the excitatory is your norepinephrine and your dopamine. Because again, those aren't bad. Everything is in balance, right? Let's say you have a lot of excitatory neurotransmitters, but very little GABA, serotonin. Well, you're going to feel anxious all the time. It's going to be difficult to fall asleep at night. So again, we want to look at these things. Okay, I'll link those up. Let's move on. Low or no motivation. Did you check that off? Yes or no? The second one is low mood, grumpy all the time, more prone towards depression, right? That matters. If you are grumpy, irritable, low mood as moving towards depression, I want you to think about that because that's beyond just low motivation. A lot of people just maybe they don't have the big drive in life. That's okay. But if you're low mood, low energy, what's going on here? And have you always been like that? And if the answer is no, and it just seems to be building up and increasing over the years, very likely could be low testosterone. It's something to check out because men and depression, men and low mood, men and who are grumpy, it very likely can be low testosterone. And again, it can be fixed. It really can. And it can be fixed naturally. I'm going to give you some methods today. I believe I did a previous podcast that went more in depth on how to boost testosterone. So I'll link that show up here today. Again, all shows will be linked up at stevencabral.com/1817. All right, so just think about that. Did you check off the box for kind of grumpy, low mood, moving towards depression? The third one is low libido. If you are not interested in sex, if you are not interested in your partner as much, whatever it might be, you want to think about that, because that can change over time as testosterone levels dip. So just think about this. If you are lower libido, it's not really on your mind. What you want to think about is that because my testosterone is dipping? Now, a lot of people say, well, I'm just really stressed and that's why my libido is low. And that's true. That is absolutely true. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of the show. And that's because as cortisol levels increase, testosterone levels drop. Really important to understand that. Because if you understand that, you know the first tip of how to get back your testosterone. All right. So that's number 3. How about number 4? Do you see, as a male, do you see the breast tissue where your pectoral muscles are, do you see that start to grow, especially around the nipple area? Because that is one sign of your testosterone being low and or your testosterone converting to estrogen. So a lot of men, they'll be put on some type of steroid or they'll take steroids illegally, and then all of a sudden they start to see this aromatization or this aromatase happening, which is basically testosterone converted into estrogen. That's an issue. That really is. I talked about this before. My body's very sensitive to soy. Not everybody's body's sensitive to soy. Mine's very sensitive to soy. And way back in the day, I was seeing this practitioner and they had me on a specific diet and it was almost all plant-based. And they said, okay, but you need to keep your muscle on. So we're going to put you on like a lot of soy in your diet. You're going to be using soy milk. You're going to be using soy protein powder. And I said, again, I'm big on committing. And within like 3 or 4 weeks, all of a sudden I was getting inflammation around my pectoral muscles, my nipple area. It was getting red. It was starting to get swollen. I said, something's going on here. Like, this is clearly attributed to this new diet and program that I'm following. Talked to the practitioner. They're like, that shouldn't be happening. But they were honest with it. They were good. They said, hey, let's stop this. Stopped it. It went away within 2 weeks. And again, let's say, okay, well, should we try it again? And I just didn't want to because I had read so much about soy. I was open to it. I was willing to try. It didn't work for me, right? So, but think about that. But soy, you don't get any, there's no food that's higher in estrogen than soy, okay? So that did not work for me. And that created that aromatase that a lot of men can have to deal with if they are converting more testosterone to estrogen or their estrogen levels are raising. So as men take steroids or add HRT to their program, their body, just be careful with that because that can start to increase estrogen levels, and dipping testosterone levels can also add to weight gain around the hips or around the pectoral area under the armpits. Keep that in mind. Look for that. Check off that box if that's happening to you. The next one is this. This now kind of gets into the gym area. If you don't feel as strong as you used to, is it just because you're deconditioned, you haven't been to the gym for a while, or are you going to the gym, are you exercising, are you lifting 2 or 3 times a week, yet you kind of feel like your strength levels are decreasing? Well, over time that can happen with decreased testosterone. Check that box off if you're feeling a lack of strength, if you're feeling a little bit weak when you can lift the same, whether you're able to lift the same weights or you are not able to as to what you've lifted in the past. All right. Now, the next one kind of goes hand in hand. It's a little bit different, but strength and muscle mass don't always go hand in hand. But do you feel yourself declining in muscle mass? Do you feel like the quality of your muscle tissue isn't as strong, isn't as dense, or you're not able to put on muscle like you used to? And that can be a sign of low testosterone in both men and women, because, by the way, women need testosterone as well, just not to the same level as men do. So let's look at it this way. And then again, these levels go for women too. It's not that we're not talking about that. So, but I wanted to focus today on males specifically. So if you are not able to keep the muscle on, or you're specifically losing muscle on your arms and legs, that's the first place to go, by the way. The trunk can maintain more of the mass, but men typically lose muscle mass in their bicep and tricep area and their quads, hamstrings over time. So keep that in mind. Look at that. Is that happening to you, or are you good? Now, the last one is this. Number 7 is this. Difficulty recovering from the same workouts you typically did in the past. If you're not recovering the same way, it can be multifactorial here, right? There's no doubt about it. It can have to do with cortisol levels. It can have to do with DHEA as well, which is part of a precursor to testosterone. It can be due to lack of sleep, poor diet, inflammation in the body. There's no doubt about it. But if those things are happening, and I'll talk about those in just a second, most likely your testosterone is declining as well. So if you're not recovering in the same way, could be declining testosterone levels. So that's why I want you to look at these signs and symptoms real quick. Low motivation, no motivation, lack of ambition. That's number one. Lower mood, moving towards depression. Grumpy. Lower libido, number three. Starting to gain weight or body fat or puffiness around the pectoral issue, around the nipples or around the hips. Feeling weaker than you have in the past, not being able to build muscle in the same way, and difficulty recovering from your workouts, right? You feel it more that next day. You don't have the same get up and go. Okay. If you checked off, I would say 2 or 3 of those, we might be moving towards lower testosterone. 4 or 5, there's no doubt about it. And I'll create an assessment most likely on my website at stephencabral.com/assessments in the future for this. I'll add probably another 5 or 6 there as well. But I wanted to give you the top 7 here today. So let's think about this. If that's happening to you, we want to make sure, because you have essentially 2 options then. I mean, you want to make sure you get your levels tested. I definitely recommend the stress hormones, mood, and metabolism test. And again, you can find that at equa.life/labs. That's that simple. You can do it right at home, privacy of your own home, little saliva test, easy, done, right? So, but the thing is this, if your levels are low, you want to know why. And so testosterone, again, there's always a reason why your body's imbalanced, bottom line. So let's look at why testosterone might be beginning to fall. The first one's inflammation, okay? So I have many shows in inflammation. We're not going to go do a deep dive on it today, but I want you to understand, specifically, the testes in the male body are prone to inflammation. And when those specific cells are inflamed, they start to decrease testosterone production. Plain and simple. Like, it's that easy. So are you inflamed? That's the question. Are you dealing with aches and pains? Are you dealing with autoimmune issues? Are you dealing with digestive issues? Are you dealing with viral load or toxicity in your body? If you are, that's the place to start, okay? So we want to look at inflammation. Have you done a functional medicine detox over the last quarter? You want to look at emptying that rain barrel. That's the first start, all right? The second one is, are you exercising? Are you strength training? Because if the answer is no, you're not going to be able to boost testosterone naturally, right? So you need to start strength training 2-3 times a week. Keep a day in between for right now, okay? So that's a big one, because strength training is going to help with growth hormone, and it's going to help with testosterone as well. Natural levels of testosterone. That's why it's both great for men and women, right? The testosterone matches your body. It doesn't overproduce testosterone. That's not going to happen. Normal strength training, 2 to 3 days a week. All right. The next one is this. What do your levels of cortisol look like? If you have high levels, chronically elevated levels of cortisol, it's going to be depleting your levels of testosterone. High levels of cortisol, it's an inverse relationship with fat and DHEA and testosterone. So again, same lab is going to give you the advice as to where you're at right now. The next I would say to you is sleep. If you are going to bed late and rising late, you are missing your opportunity for peak testosterone production in the morning, and you're missing your opportunity to produce more melatonin during the night. Get to bed by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at the very, very latest. Make sure that your eyes are shut and not exposed to bright light or any light in your bedroom from the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. at a minimum, those 5 hours, okay? That's the minimum. Because if you are not, your body's not going to get the proper signals for dopamine, the proper signals for thyroid, the proper signals for testosterone, and the proper signals for cortisol. Meaning cortisol should be quiet from 9 o'clock till about 4 o'clock in the morning. Thyroid's time should begin to rise in the morning. Melatonin should be high overnight. Testosterone is going to start to peak in the morning, same with DHEA. It's very important to look at how the human body works, how those hormones work. So again, this is crucial information that you should be working on before you ever think about using HRT or TRT. Now, the last part is this. There are specific supplements that you can begin to use and utilize in order to boost your testosterone naturally. And that's because if you're depleted, you can't make enough testosterone naturally. So daily foundational protocol level 2 at a minimum. What is that? That's your all-in-one that includes all your B vitamins, all your activated vitamins. It contains your amino acids with protein. I'm not going to go too deep into it. It contains your omega-3s, your daily probiotic, your daily fruit and vegetable blend for your greens. And that's it. I mean, that's what you're going to get. Now, on top of that, though, that's great. You want to be doing that. Every human should be doing that. Okay, so that's one. And I can't link that up. Honestly, the FDA does not allow me to do a podcast talking about health, believe it or not, and then link up nutritional supplements. I don't understand it, but anyway, it's always your choice, right? Like you have a choice to use these things or not. You can go to just go to equa.life. You can see exactly what I use in my practice. Choose to use it or not, because you can always use another brand, but see what I'm talking about. And you can just type in daily foundational protocol and you'll find exactly what I'm talking about. So equa.life. So equi.life. Now, the other part is the immunity protocol. And again, choose any company you want. That's not for me to tell you who to use. You can see exactly what I use myself and what I use in my practice. And then it's up to you to use whatever you'd like, but also the immunity protocol. Why the immunity protocol? And I talked about this in a previous podcast, and I will link up that show. So if you're not getting enough vitamin C, if you're not getting enough vitamin D, and you're not getting enough zinc, forget about making enough testosterone naturally. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Sure, you'll pull it off in your teenage years and your 20s, and then you'll start to decline after that. You've used up your natural your supplies, and you're not going to get enough for food. I mean, again, I do this every single day, 8 hours a day minimum every day. I look at people's diet. I plug it into my calculator that spits out the vitamins and the minerals and all these different things on a daily basis. There's nobody, including myself, that's basically hitting 100% in every category through food alone. It's just not happening. I wish it was the truth, but soil degradation, number of other issues, and the amount of stress on us just means we typically need more. But again, that's for you to decide. But I'll tell you this, you get enough vitamin C, you get enough zinc, you get enough vitamin D, it's going to help boost your testosterone naturally. The last one, and again, so those are the foundation. In the future, you may or may not need a little bit more magnesium, like a full spectrum magnesium in the evening with dinner or before bed. I like to use it before bed. That's how I do it, 2 to 3 capsules. Now, could you use a product like Adrenal Soothe? It's not enough time on the show today. My time is already up, but Adrenal Soothe, if you have high levels of cortisol, it's going to help you balance that at lunchtime and after dinner as well. So again, the way that you know, though, is yes, stress levels, there's no doubt about all of that, but you run a lab. It's the easiest and best way. So if you're able to, that's what I recommend. You get more of a personalized protocol with that. But that is the starting point. So again, you should not, in my opinion, again, I'm not giving disease diagnosis, I'm not giving treatment protocols, medical advice, cures. I think those are that's what I'm stating, right? Okay. So here's the thing though. If you're thinking about TRT, your functional medicine doctor is pushing you towards it, your biological doctor is pushing you towards it, don't do it. In my opinion, don't do it unless you've done all the other things first. Because what they don't tell you is that you're never getting back, if you're in your later years, you're never getting back your own testosterone levels most likely. And there are side effects to these things as well. So in the future, 65 plus, again, that's not what I'd be doing. But again, then I can say, okay, maybe small dosages. We'll talk about what to do 65 plus in the future. Hopefully this show was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, if it was helpful, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve. Before you go, I'd like to share with you what we have going on over at Equalife. Equalife is the equivalent to my private practice that has now been brought online and is virtual to be able to greater serve people all throughout the world. We literally ship at-home lab kits and protocols to over 25 different countries, and we've been doing that for many years. So what I'd like to do is share with you right now a special offer over at equa.life. That's our website, equi.life. And it truly embodies, as I said, our private functional medicine and integrative health practice. So what we are offering right now are the same exact labs we use inside of the private practice. And that is, to you, it's essentially open sourced so that you can find your own own levels of your vitamins, whether you need more or less, minerals, more or less, heavy metals, whether you need to be doing a heavy metal detox. We can look at gut function as the overgrowth of bacteria or yeast or parasites, H. pylori. We can look at your hormone levels to see if you're balanced in terms of estrogen and progesterone, testosterone levels, DHEA, that nice anti-aging hormone. We can look at your cortisol levels. We can look at that cortisol to see if you have high or low energy. We can look at your thyroid and so much more, like food sensitivities, mitochondrial function, detox function, environmental toxins, you name it. If you don't know about these labs, or if you've been thinking about running a lab, I would highly recommend you and your family head on over to equa.life/labs. Right now, while supplies last for each lab, we are offering $100 off every single lab. That means all single labs are $100 off, plus you're also getting a 30-minute health coaching call with that, so that we can not just run the lab, but actually read the results to you, let you know exactly what they mean and what you can do to go about rebalancing your body. There's really nothing else like it in the world. There's honestly not, because you would have to search out a functional medicine doctor or integrative health practitioner in your area, which of course you're always welcome to do. We are not against that by any means, but we want to make this process easy for you, your family, your loved ones. So right now, save $100 off all single labs that also come with that complimentary 30-minute health coaching call as well, to read your labs and get a plan that has been customized just for you. The website, once again, is equa.life, and you can go to equa.life/labs if you'd like to go directly there. Take care, everyone. And of course, you can always email us at support@equa.life with any questions.